All right. Do you feel that you have to work harder to have the same life as your non-Muslim counterparts?
Uh, I mean, maybe in certain, maybe not. I wouldn't say harder. It's not like uh the system. I wouldn't say like the system's out to get like to get Muslims, like not like to the extent that it's been built against like black people, for example, or like to criminalize them or whatever. I mean, there are some programs out there that kind of like look to criminalize Muslims, but it's not as rampant. But I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say I would have to work harder. I mean, a lot of things like play in your favor, like being a minority and for certain areas in terms of work and school and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even like throughout high school, like uh I worked just as hard as the guy sitting next to me, and we
Nice.
got the same exact same like scores or whatever,
Great
the same
attitude.
of same scholarship stuff like that. It's just I don't think I have to work too much harder. Maybe just in terms of like everyday encounters, like working hard to like I had to be on my best behavior basically to kind of, and that's the thing from our religion, even with or without people giving us a bad name. It's our job in our religion to be at our best character, to have the highest character.
Okay.
So maybe in that form, but
Good
that's just
attitude.
from my own self. That's from me wanting to be my best, not necessarily like trying to reverse some wrong or whatever like that. But no, overall, I wouldn't say so.
Uh, man, I just think you have a great attitude about this, man. You sound a lot like myself. Like, nice.
Yeah, I
Pleasure to
mean,
meet you,
like
man. So far.
I'm I'm the mentality of like hope for the best but prepare for the worst, right? So
Gotcha.
kind of like
Yeah, man.
don't be sensitive, but you got to be ready for whatever could
Oh,
happen.
that's great, man. That's great. It's great to have know that there's people like that. Um, would you say that when you say that you have to be on your best behavior, do you think there's a finer line when it comes to, say, you make a mistake or you mess up in an interview or something, and compared to a person who wouldn't have such discrimination, say a white person who has like similar um, the similar what's it called like they have the same skills as you and they have the same instincts as you. Would you say
Yeah,
that they will have a finer line? They'll give them a second chance instead of you? Would you agree?
I would I would say so. I'd agree with that just because like uh if a Muslim says something on an interview, for example, like the video will be taken, bits will be taken out of context, stuff like that. The person will be bashed and bashed. I actually have like a concrete example. There's a Muslim woman activist in New York. She was at a conference and she used the word jihad, but in like a positive connotation, right? And
Mm-hmm.
what jihad means, it's like a struggle. But to a lot of like Islamophobes, people who hate Islam or whatever, they believe that word to just mean like war, that we want to go to war with the non-Muslims, etc. So they took her speech out of context, and people, like random people on Twitter were attacking her, sending her death threats. She was getting bashed on the news, stuff like that. And I mean, like, and then when you see how different people on the news right now, there are white men who are being accused of sexual assault, stuff like that,
Yeah.
uh, of pedophilia, for example, but people are going out of their way to defend him. So I mean, to defend them, sorry. So
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
I
Don-
think yeah, for sure. Like I would, if
Donald
I were
Trump.
in an interview and I made a mistake, I would get bashed for it more than a white person for making the same mistake.
Right. And that brought up to mind the Donald Trump incident where he just attacked the women overall, saying
Yeah,
inappropriate things. And what did the people do that supported him, which were like majority of white conservatives, right wing activists, if you will, who
yeah,
defended him
exactly.
to a pulp. Man, they said that, oh, they spoke like that. Like I consider myself like I will like talk inappropriately, but I've never seen something like that, you know? That's just
Yeah,
another level.
exactly.
And I'm like, that's
No,
just a decency level that one must have. but I don't know. Some people just.
I mean, yeah, it's dismissed as locker room talk or whatever.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, I've been in a locker room and no one talks like that.
Yeah, no,
Like,
but I've
it's
never
not.
heard anybody talk like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, so yeah, that's my point. So
yeah.
if a brown person were running for president and that happened, he'd be out of the race in an
Oh,
instant. Like, he wouldn't be
immediately.
sitting in the White House.
Yeah, definitely agree with you on that. Do you like the way Muslims are presented in schools? Like, then when in the ways that they might teach events such as 9/11 and trigger the fall to Muslims, or would you say that's a faulty thing in schools nowadays?
Um, well, I mean, we have to admit, like tell the truth where it happened. So yes, if the evidence has shown that these people who are claiming to be Muslims, so in that aspect, yes, it's true. But with that, the religion has nothing to do with what they did.
Agree, completely
Even
agree.
they may be saying, even though they may be saying we did this for the sake of God, we did this for Islam or whatever. Even though they didn't say that, we didn't hear what they said while they were flying, or when they hijacked the planes. Like and they might be part of certain groups, but their religion had nothing to do with them murdering 3,000 people. Like it's not a relevant point, I would say.
Yeah.
And I mean, because then, like, when you bring it up, then you're literally, like, you're giving people a reason to hate Muslims. Like, what's the point of mentioning what they did? Even though I, as a Muslim, have no intention of doing anything like that, but you're associating me with these people, right? So you're guilty by association, basically, if that were the case. So I mean, I didn't go to a public school. I actually went to a charter school. It was run by Muslims, but it wasn't a religious school by any means. So I mean, they did a good job, I guess, like presenting what 9/11 was and stuff like that. But I mean, I can't speak for how it's talked about in public school because I haven't been. So I mean, I haven't been in high school. In elementary school, it wasn't presented very well. I'll tell you that.
And was this school you attended really diverse, or was there a lot of majority in an ethnic group, or what would you classify it as?
My high school?
Yeah, you said you attended a charter school,
yeah.
right?
It was a charter school. My graduating class was 12 people. 8 out of 12 of the people were Muslim, so we were of the same religion.
So
but it was diverse, like ethnically. Like I was only Indian in the class. There were people from. I had a friend from Somalia. I had a friend from Yemen. I had a friend from Turkey. I had a friend from Germany. I had a friend from the Philippines. It was very, very, like, every single person in the class was from a different, like, country, basically. Like, whether they were born here and their families from there, or they're like they were born there themselves. So I mean, even though religiously there was a lot of similar, and the whole school was kind of like that, where the majority of the school was Muslim, but it was a very diverse type of environment culturally. Yeah,
that's great. Your point that I jumped to the conclusion that you're pretty assimilated and accustomed to this society, and I would consider yourself you would consider yourself an American, right?
Like, yeah, definitely.
And and I'd like to add that you would be considered someone that is quite accommodated to this society. What would you think of someone that is Muslim as well, but has just came to this country? Would you automatically, or would you agree that they would be more discriminated against than you would be? If somebody jumped to or met you for the first time and you were next to the person that just came from a Muslim country, would you agree that they would be discriminated against more?
I think probably they would be, just because they're going to be susceptible to be taken advantage of anyways.
Yeah.
Just because of language barrier and stuff. So yeah, I am a pretty assimilated myself, just because being raised here. My dad was he was born in India, but he was raised in rural Alabama for most of his life. My mom's she lived only half her life here, but my family's been here for such a long time. So I think for me, that's the thing. So if I'm talking to someone and they find out later that I'm Muslim, that I'm not like foreignized in their head. right?
Yeah.
Because I don't have an accent. I don't
Yeah.
have I don't have a foreign accent. I don't have I speak the exact same language as them.
Yeah.
I make the same cultural references, stuff like that. But
Mhm.
if someone who is coming from overseas, who you have nearly nothing in common with, does that, you're definitely gonna think differently of them. So, for example, Arizona has a lot of Syrian refugees, and they get discriminated against a lot, just because I mean they don't know English, they have never been to this country before, not even visited. They're political refugees, and they're being taken advantage of much more than I would be, just because uh, I can speak the language and I know the culture and I know the system. So, I mean, a lot goes into that, like to being discriminated against. Language definitely. I mean, like if someone wants to discriminate against, or if someone wants to be racist against me, for example, or stereotype or whatever, then they're gonna have to argue with me, and I can argue with my words. Like I'm a political science major, so I'm good at
Uh-huh.
arguing. But if you're going, if it's like a refugee, you're going up with someone who can't fight back necessarily.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, overall, I would definitely say that it's much easier to be discriminated against if you're a refugee or an immigrant, like a recent immigrant.
Do you feel as if people are somewhat surprised when you speak in a way that you have no accent? Do you think that people are, or do you feel as if people are shocked in a way?
Um, I think for the most part, no. Maybe sometimes at the coffee shop, there are some people who are surprised just because I look foreign. I have a beard. I have brown. Uh, but other than that, I mean, usually not. I think a lot of people. I mean, that's the thing. I'm in my own bubble, right? Most of my friends are Muslim, and most of the non-Muslims I interact with are Arizona State students. So
Yeah.
they're very used to people from other cultures and religions and stuff like that compared to other places. So uh, I don't think people are surprised. I mean, it happens every once in a while. People assume I'm an immigrant or a refugee. Someone's actually told me that to my face during work, like
Oh wow.
assuming that I'm a refugee or an immigrant, even though we were having a conversation, speaking the exact same language, and
Wow. Really?
yeah, it's happened a few times. I mean, I don't want to paint the entire. It's literally like 2, 3 people it's happened with, but yeah, uh, and I mean like it's just people like once you go in with a preconceived notion, it's very hard to change that. It takes a lot of work to change that. I mean, on behalf of the person who has those preconceived notions themselves and myself to kind of like get them through that. So it's just like some people don't want to be open to it, so they just stick to their preconceived notion. But no, overall, I wouldn't say people assume I'm like a